You give them your love. You give them your time. You pour your heart into the relationship. But somehow, they seem more excited about their hobbies, their friends, or their work. You wait to feel like the priority, but that day never comes. It's not that they don't care. It's that closeness feels dangerous, and distance feels safe. That's why they hide. In busyness, in distraction, in anything but love. Because love requires presence, and presence threatens the one thing they fear most: losing their independence, the distraction that feels safer than love. Avoidants don't run from love because they hate it. They run because love feels overwhelming. And when something overwhelms the nervous system, the brain looks for escape routes. That's why avoidants lean so heavily on distractions. They put work first. They lose themselves in hobbies. They fill their calendars with friends because those things feel safe, predictable, manageable, and most importantly, those things don't demand too much of them emotionally. When you love someone, you want to share yourself. You want to open up. You want to be seen. But to the avoidant, that same openness feels like danger. It's not that they don't want connection. It's that connection activates old fears. Fears they learned long before you came into their life. As children, many avoidants were made to feel that their needs didn't matter. That closeness was risky. That love came with conditions. So now, as adults, they try to find ways to meet their needs without stepping into that danger zone. And hobbies, friends, and work become the perfect hiding places. Think about it. Work gives them structure, deadlines, tasks, achievements. Every time they succeed at work, they feel competent, in control, independent. Work doesn't demand vulnerability. It doesn't ask them to share their fears. It doesn't require emotional exposure. So to the avoidant, work feels safer than love. Now look at hobbies. Hobbies are self-contained worlds. They offer joy without risk, focus without intimacy. When an avoidant is painting, or running, or gaming, or building something, they're in control of that world. No one can reject them in that space. No one can make them feel too much. No one can pressure them into closeness. Hobbies become a sanctuary, a place where they can feel good, without the fear of being hurt. And then there are friends. Friends allow a kind of connection that feels easier to manage. With friends, the avoidant can connect, but keep it light. Share, but only to a point. Laugh, without the pressure of going deeper. Friendships let them feel like they belong, without demanding full emotional exposure. It's connection on their terms, not yours. Not too much, not too close. To you, it looks like rejection, like they're choosing everyone and everything over you. But to them, they're not rejecting you. They're protecting themselves from the thing that feels the most terrifying: closeness, dependence, needing someone else. It hurts to feel like second best. It hurts to feel like you're never enough, to compete with their distractions. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. You're not competing, because you're not in the same category. Work, hobbies, and friends are not replacements for love. They're shields against it. They're tools of avoidance, not proof that you're lacking. Let's go deeper. When the avoidant dives into work, they can hide their vulnerability behind success. They can point to their achievements and say, "See, I'm fine. I don't need anyone. I can handle life on my own." That sense of independence gives them temporary relief. It quiets the fear that if they open up, they'll lose themselves. But it's just that temporary relief. Because no matter how many promotions, no matter how many late nights at the office, the loneliness creeps back in. When the avoidant fills their time with friends, it looks healthy from the outside. It looks social. It looks balanced. But notice the depth. Are those friendships built on emotional honesty? Or are they built on keeping things light? Often, avoidance will keep friends at a comfortable distance. They'll share fun moments, but not their deepest fears. They'll laugh together, but never reveal their pain. Because if they do, the fear returns. The fear of needing someone, the fear of being let down, the fear of depending. So even friendships become a form of hiding. And then hobbies. Hobbies are the purest escape of all. When the avoidant is immersed in something they love, they don't have to face you. They don't have to face themselves. They don't have to face the terrifying possibility of being fully seen. In that space, they're free from the weight of intimacy. But here's the paradox. The more they invest in hobbies, the more distant they feel from you. And yet the more distant they feel from you, the more they need hobbies to fill the emptiness. It becomes a cycle, one they don't even realize they're stuck in. So when you say, "Why do you always choose other things over me?" the avoidant hears, "You're trying to control me. You're trying to take away my safety." They don't hear your longing. They don't hear your love. They hear pressure. And pressure makes them retreat deeper into the things that feel safe. But don't mistake their distance for a lack of feeling. Avoidants care more than they show. They feel more than they admit. They long for connection, just as much as you do. They're just terrified of losing themselves in it. So they cling to distractions, to remind themselves, "I am still me. I am still independent. I am still safe." But here's the quiet truth. They don't tell anyone. Work achievements can't hold them at night. Friends can't replace the intimacy of a partner. Hobbies can't answer their longing to be truly known. Every distraction eventually fades. And when it does, the loneliness hits harder. Because underneath all the busyness, underneath all the achievements, underneath all the fun, is a heart that still craves love. So when you feel invisible, when you feel like second choice, remember this. It's not because you're not enough. It's because closeness terrifies them. It's because love means being vulnerable, being dependent, being open to loss. And for the avoidant, that's the scariest risk of all. But here's the key insight. The very things avoidants use to protect themselves end up keeping them lonely. Work without love feels hollow. Friendships without depth feel shallow. Hobbies without connection feel empty. They may spend years running, but eventually, they realize that nothing they choose over love can truly replace it. That's why you must remember, their distractions aren't about you. They're about fear. They're about survival. They're about old wounds that taught them it was safer to choose anything over intimacy. And until they face those wounds, they'll keep hiding, not because you're unworthy of love, but because love demands the very thing they've always feared, being truly seen and truly loved. The emotional math of the avoidant. To understand why avoidants choose distractions over you, you have to see the hidden equation they live by. It's not logical math. It's emotional math. A calculation running in the background of their mind, almost like a survival instinct. And it goes like this. Love equals risk. Distractions equals safety. That's the entire formula. It's simple. It's powerful. And it drives nearly everything they do in relationships. When you say, "I want to be close to you," you mean, "I want to share life with you." But what the avoidant hears is, "You want me to give up safety. You want me to lose control. You want me to risk pain." To you, closeness is nourishment. To them, closeness is danger. That's why they choose hobbies. That's why they lean into work. That's why they spend more time with friends. Because all those things fit into this safe side of their equation. Let's break it down. Work. Work offers rewards without emotional exposure. At work, they can be admired. respected, even envied, all without having to open their heart, all without risking rejection when they put in extra hours or say yes to more projects. What they're really doing is choosing certainty over vulnerability. Work says, if you give more, you'll achieve more. Love says, if you give more, you might get hurt. Which one do you think they'll choose? Friends. Friendships offer connection without the risk of deep intimacy. They can hang out, laugh, share a drink, go to events. It looks like closeness, but it's closeness on their terms. If they ever feel overwhelmed, they can pull back without as much consequence. Try doing that in a romantic relationship. The fallout feels heavier, so they convince themselves that pouring energy into friends is safer than pouring it into you. Hobbies. Hobbies offer passion without pressure. When they dive into painting or music or sports or even binge watching something they love, they get pleasure without the demands of intimacy. A hobby doesn't text them, "Why are you distant?" A hobby doesn't ask, "Do you still love me?" A hobby accepts whatever energy they give it. No judgment, no pressure, no risk. That's why it feels so soothing. Now here's the paradox. Avoidants don't actually value these things more than you. It only looks that way. What they value most is safety. And since you're the one who can truly reach their heart, you're also the one who feels the most dangerous. So they push love to the side, and they pull work, friends, and hobbies to the front. Not because you don't matter, but because you matter too much. This is the twisted math of the avoidant. The more someone matters, the more dangerous they feel. That's why you'll notice avoidants seem more open early on. At the beginning, you're still new. The risk hasn't sunk in yet. They'll text all the time. They'll plan dates. They'll even share pieces of themselves. But as soon as love deepens, as soon as the risk feels real, they run the numbers in their head. And suddenly, work feels safer. Friends feel safer. Hobbies feel safer. That's when you feel the shift. That's when you start asking yourself, why am I not the priority anymore? But here's the cruel irony. Avoidants crave what they avoid. They want closeness. They want love. They want the very thing they run from. But their emotional math keeps telling them, safety first, love later. Except later never comes. Because the more they avoid, the more distance they create. And the more distance they create, the more impossible closeness feels. It becomes a loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy. They think, if I let someone close, I'll lose myself. So they push you away. And when you pull back, they think, see, love always leaves. I was right to protect myself. The cycle repeats. Let's imagine a real scenario. You invite your avoidant partner to spend the weekend with you. You picture lazy mornings together, cooking dinner, maybe even deep conversations late at night. But they say, I can't. I have work to finish. Or, I promised my friends I'd join them. Or, I really need to spend time on my project. To you, it feels like rejection, like you're not important, like you're not enough. But to them, it feels like survival. They're not choosing the hobby or the work over you. They're choosing safety over risk, predictability over vulnerability, control over uncertainty. The tragedy is, their emotional math is outdated. It comes from childhood wounds, from moments when love really was unsafe, when vulnerability really did cost them something. Back then, the formula saved them. It helped them survive. But now, as adults, the same formula sabotages them because the love you're offering isn't the same love they once feared, but their nervous system can't tell the difference. To them, it's all the same danger. And here's what hurts most for you. You can see their potential. You can see the love inside them. You can feel the bond that exists beneath all the walls. But no matter how much you give, their math doesn't change. Because in their mind, giving too much to love still equals danger. This is why chasing them never works. The more you chase, the more they adjust the equation. They start telling themselves, love equals pressure. Pressure equals loss of safety. And so they retreat further, work harder, socialize more, bury themselves deeper in hobbies. It's not about you doing something wrong. It's about their system being wired for self-protection. The heartbreaking truth is, they think they're winning. They think they're preserving themselves. They think they're in control. But the cost is enormous. Because every time they choose safety over love, they reinforce the belief that love is unsafe. And with every choice, they push you further away. Until one day, they look around and realize they've built a life full of activity, but empty of intimacy. That's the emotional math of the avoidant. It's not that they don't love you. It's not that they don't care. It's not even that they prefer their hobbies or their work. It's that the weight of safety outweighs the pull of love, at least in the way their nervous system is wired. And until that wiring shifts, you'll keep feeling like you're in second place, not because you are, but because to them, love is the riskiest choice of all. The disguises of distance. On the surface, it doesn't look like distance. It looks like dedication, ambition, sociability, passion. People around them might even admire it. Wow, they're such a hard worker. They have such a rich social life. They're so passionate about their hobbies. But underneath those disguises, it's all the same thing. Avoidance. Let's start with work. Work is the avoidant's most respected disguise. Society rewards people who bury themselves in their careers. We call them successful, driven, leaders. So when an avoidant pours themselves into work, no one questions it. They can say, I need to stay late tonight. I've got a big project coming up. I can't. I've got meetings all week. And people nod. They understand. They even praise it. But what looks like ambition is often escape. Because inside, work is safer than love. Work doesn't ask them to be vulnerable. Work doesn't need them to say, I'm scared of being hurt. Work doesn't require intimacy. It only requires output, performance, results. And avoidants thrive there because it allows them to give without ever giving their heart. Then there's friendships. Friendships are the avoidant's most convincing disguise because on the outside, it looks healthy, balanced, like they're investing in their community. But if you look closer, you'll see the difference. Avoidants often spread themselves thin. Lots of friends, lots of acquaintances, lots of social circles, but very few truly deep connections. Because friendship lets them control the depth. They can show up when they want to, disappear when they need space, and it doesn't cost as much. Try doing that in love, and it feels like betrayal. So to the avoidant, friendship feels freer, safer, easier, and because of that, you're left wondering why they'll drop everything to meet up with friends, but hesitate to give you the same energy. And then hobbies. Hobbies are the avoidant's most private disguise. It might look like they're passionate, like they're simply creative, like they've got great discipline. But sometimes, hobbies are where they go to hide. Think about it. When they're in the middle of painting, or gaming, or playing music, or hiking, what do they have to face? Not rejection, not criticism, not intimacy, just the activity, something they can control. Something that won't leave, something that won't ask for more. And so hobbies become not just fun, but safe refuges. Safe from you, safe from closeness, safe from the terrifying possibility of being seen. Here's the heartbreaking part. You're not imagining it. You're not paranoid. You're not too needy. You really are being deprioritized. But it's not because you don't matter. It's because you matter the most. And that makes you dangerous. So instead, they cloak their distance in socially acceptable disguises. And those disguises make you question yourself. You start wondering, am I asking for too much? Should I be more understanding? Maybe it's selfish of me to want more time. But think about it. If you were truly the problem, why do they seem fine giving their time to everything else? The truth is, you're not asking for too much. They're giving too little. Not because they don't care, but because caring terrifies them. And this is where the avoidance cycle deepens. Because the disguises don't just protect them, they also fool them. They convince themselves, I'm not avoiding love. I'm just hardworking. I'm not distant. I'm just independent. I'm not closed off. I just need balance. But inside, they know the truth. They know that when they cancel a date, but keep the meeting with their boss, it's not about priorities. It's about fear. They know that when they tell you they're too tired, but then spend 3 hours on a hobby, it's not about energy. It's about safety. They know that when they withdraw, it's not because you matter less. It's because you matter more. But here's what's important. These disguises don't come from malice. They're not intentionally trying to hurt you. They're not trying to punish you. They're not secretly choosing others over you because they don't care. They're choosing safety every single time because for them, safety feels more important than intimacy, more urgent than love, more pressing than your needs. And that's the wound they carry. Let's pause here. Think of the last time you felt them pull away. Maybe you planned a night together, and they suddenly remembered work stuff. Or maybe you shared something vulnerable, and the next day they spent hours with friends instead of checking in. Or maybe you wanted closeness, but they sank into their hobbies and left you feeling invisible. It stung. It made you question your worth. It left you angry or confused. But behind every one of those moments, the disguise was the same. Avoidance. Not because you're too much, but because for them, love feels like too much. And here's the deeper tragedy. The more they lean on these disguises, the lonelier they actually become. Work might fill their schedule. Friends might fill their evenings. Hobbies might fill their days. But none of it fills the void. Because the void isn't about having things to do. It's about having someone to love and allowing themselves to be loved in return. And that's the one thing they keep running from. So when you see them prioritizing work, or friends, or hobbies, understand this. It's not about you being unworthy. It's about them being afraid. Their distance wears disguises, but the truth is always the same. They're protecting themselves from the very thing they want most. And until they see through their own disguises, love will always feel like second place. The hidden economy of intimacy. Every relationship runs on an invisible economy, an economy of time, of energy, of presence, of emotional availability. Most people spend these resources on the people they love most. They give generously. They sacrifice sleep. They show up, even when tired. They invest because love feels worth it. But for avoidance, the economy looks upside down. They spend freely on hobbies, on friends, on work, and they ration carefully with you. Why? Because to them, closeness feels expensive. Intimacy feels costly. Vulnerability feels like debt. So instead of giving freely, they hoard. They hold back. They conserve, not because you don't deserve it, but because the thought of losing it later feels unbearable. It's like they're guarding their emotional wallet with shaking hands. Think about it this way. When they spend 3 hours on a hobby, they don't feel drained. They feel safe. When they spend a night out with friends, they don't fear rejection. They feel in control. When they stay late at work, they don't risk intimacy. They risk nothing. But when they spend that same time with you, they feel exposed, open, unshielded, and that's why they ration it. Because to them, being close is like spending the last dollar they can't replace. Here's the paradox. They believe they're conserving energy, protecting themselves, keeping something valuable safe. But in reality, they're starving the very thing that could actually feed them: love. Because love doesn't work like money. The more you give, the more you create, the more you risk, the more you receive. But avoidants don't trust that. They trust scarcity. They trust fear. They trust withdrawal. Let's look at the subtle signs of this hidden economy. They cancel plans with you, but never cancel work. They forget date night, but never forget their hobby schedule. They ghost your texts, but light up group chats. To you, it feels personal, like rejection, like betrayal, like you're not worth it. But to them, it feels like survival, because your closeness asks them to spend the one currency they've never learned to trust: their heart. Now here's where it gets even more complicated. Avoidants often don't even realize they're doing this. To them, it feels logical, practical, balanced. They might say, "I just need space. I just have a lot on my plate. I can't give more right now." And on the surface, it sounds reasonable. But underneath, what they're really saying is, "I don't know how to invest in love without feeling like I'll lose everything." Imagine this scene. You ask for more time together. They nod, say they'll try, but weeks go by and nothing changes. Because when they look at their inner economy, your request feels like a tax they can't pay. So they retreat. They escape into work, into friends, into hobbies, and you're left wondering, why does it feel like I'm begging for the bare minimum? It's not because you're asking for too much. It's because they're living with an emotional poverty mindset. And here's the cruel irony. By trying to protect themselves from losing too much, they guarantee they'll lose everything. Because you can't build intimacy on rationed affection. You can't sustain love on emotional leftovers. You can't deepen connection when your partner is giving their best to everything but you. Eventually, the relationship feels like starvation, and you, the one who only asked for closeness, are left empty. But let's be honest, there's a reason you stay, a reason you keep waiting, a reason you fight for their time. Because deep down, you sense the truth, that behind the walls, behind the rationing, behind the endless distractions, they do feel deeply. In fact, they feel more than most. That's why they hide. That's why they hoard. That's why they avoid. Because their feelings for you are so powerful that they terrify them. And so, instead of showing it, they disguise it. They channel it. They bury it. They give the best of themselves to hobbies, to friends, to work, because those things don't have the power to break them. But you do. Here's the painful reality. This hidden economy shapes every moment with them. It decides how much they text back, how much time they give, how much presence they allow, how much energy they invest. And unless they confront it, love will always feel like an expense they can't afford. But there's hope in this too, because economies can shift. Scarcity mindsets can heal. People can learn that love multiplies instead of depletes. But it starts with awareness, with recognizing that the way they ration love isn't balance, it's fear. And fear can't sustain intimacy. Only courage can. So the next time you feel them pull away, remember this. It's not about your worth. It's about their fear. They're not choosing hobbies, friends, and work because they don't value you. They're choosing them because they don't yet trust that love won't cost them everything. And until they do, you'll always feel like second place. Not because you are, but because closeness is the most expensive thing they believe they'll ever give. When love competes with distraction, when you love an avoidant, you quickly learn a painful truth. You're not just in a relationship with them. You're in a relationship with their distractions, with their hobbies, with their friends, with their work. And no matter how much you give, it feels like you're competing with everything else in their world. You ask for time. They choose another project. You ask for presence. They bury themselves in their phone. You ask for closeness. They suddenly remember plans with someone else. And you're left wondering, why am I always the option and never the priority? The truth is, this isn't about you. It's about them. Avoidants live in a tug of war between two forces, the deep craving for love and the terror of being consumed by it. So they build a life full of distractions, as if those distractions can keep them safe from the pull of intimacy. Think about it. Hobbies give them escape. Friends give them comfort. Work gives them identity. And you? You give them intimacy, which is the one thing they want most and fear most. So when it feels too close, they flee into the arms of distraction, not because they don't care, but because you represent the one thing that threatens their fragile sense of control. It's easy to take it personally, to think, if they loved me, they'd choose me. But avoidants don't operate from the same map of love. To them, choosing you fully feels like drowning. It feels like stepping into a river without knowing if they can swim. So instead of surrendering to the current, they cling to the shore, to hobbies, to friends, to work, because those things don't ask them to risk their soul. But here's the hidden tragedy. All those distractions don't fill them. They numb them. They busy them. They shield them. But they don't satisfy them. Because no matter how many hours they pour into work, no matter how many hobbies they master, no matter how many friends they surround themselves with, there's still an ache inside. The ache of avoided love. The ache of connection withheld. The ache of the intimacy they run from. And you see it sometimes, don't you? In the moments when their walls crack, when their laughter lingers too long, when they look at you, and for a second, their guard drops. It's in those flashes that you realize they feel deeply, maybe more deeply than they let on. And that's why they run. Not because they don't care, but because they care too much. Still, knowing this truth doesn't erase the hurt. It doesn't erase the lonely nights, the unanswered texts, the feeling of competing with everything else in their life. Because love shouldn't feel like a competition. It shouldn't feel like you're begging for the scraps of their attention. It should feel like home, like partnership, like priority. And when it doesn't, your heart begins to break in silence. So what do? Do you keep waiting? Keep hoping? Keep fighting for the number one spot in a game you never signed up to play? Or do you step back and realize that their avoidance isn't something you can fix with more giving, more patience, more chasing? Because the truth is, love can only grow when both people choose it. Not half, not rationed, not distracted, but whole, present, devoted. And that's the choice they must face. To keep running, hiding, numbing, escaping, or to risk what terrifies them most. To risk being seen, to risk being loved, to risk being vulnerable. Because that risk is the only path to the love they crave. And here's the part that hurts to hear. Sometimes, the only way an avoidant learns is when you stop carrying the weight for them, when you stop chasing, when you stop competing, when you stop begging for the smallest crumbs of attention, when you finally say, I am not an option, I am not a backup, I am not a second choice, and you step into your own power. Because love is not about convincing someone to choose you. It's about being with someone who already does. And when you hold that truth, you shift the balance. You stop playing the invisible game. You stop negotiating with their walls. You stop losing yourself just to be chosen. And in that moment, everything changes. Because whether they realize it or not, avoidants feel the absence. Your silence echoes louder than your chasing ever did. Your stillness forces them to face the emptiness their distractions can't fill. And in that space, they have to confront the truth. That love was never the threat. Avoidance was. So if you're listening now, if you've been the one competing with hobbies, with friends, with work, let this land deeply. You are not hard to love. You are not asking for too much. You are not the reason they run. You are simply asking for the kind of love that doesn't hide. And that request is not a burden. It's the bare minimum. So hold your standard. Protect your heart. Refuse to play second place to someone's distractions, because the love you deserve is not rationed, not hidden, not avoided. It's present. It's certain. It's whole. And when you refuse to settle for anything less, you don't just protect yourself. You give them the only chance they'll ever have to face the fear that keeps them running. If this message spoke to you, pause for a moment. Breathe. Feel your worth again. And if you know someone else who's been caught in the silent competition with an avoidance distractions, share this with them. Because sometimes the truth we need most is the one we can't say out loud.